All right. So we do a couple of things. One is we bring role models to talk about, contextual topics like low code, no code, cloud and containerization. How do you do product management, stuff like that, that is relevant to all of us here. And then the second thing that we do is we launch something called RISE, which is a flagship program for women who code Hyderabad now, which is reboot, invest, scale, and empower yourself. I know CBRE has their own RISE slogan here, but just to clarify, this is something that we had coined, and the intent is to bring back women who are on a break back to their careers, right? Many times you would see women take a break for most part it is women either for maternity or for caregiving or for whatever reason. So this program kind of helps them by training them, giving them hands-on opportunities to regain their technology skills, and then we socialize their profiles to everybody in the industry. So we have done 4 cycles so far. Do spread the word, and would love to do more of what we are already doing. So with that, we'll get started with the discussion now. But I have a lot of interesting questions, which I'm not going to share with you upfront, but sure. Let's start with something very simple, your introduction. Apratim, why don't you get started?
Absolutely, I'll get started since I have the mic. So my name is Apratim. I have the pleasure to lead the D&T Center for CBRE in India. Prior to that, for 15 and a half years at Bank of America, like Saraswathi and Moses. And before that, for a decade in the Wall Street. So that is a bit about myself, live in Hyderabad, and that's a bit about me.
Thank you. My name is Anjali Desai. I have about 3 decades of experience behind me. I've spent about 14 years in IT with TCS and Wipro. I've spent the last 8 or 9 years of my life in the manufacturing sector. And I was also in the academic sector associated with IIM Ahmedabad and Symbiosis Institute of Business Management, Pune. A little motivated at the end of the session. So no major gyan, but just feel good.
Like to add that Anjali has completed her PhD in diversity and inclusion. So a big round of applause for that.
Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Great to see all of you. And I'm happy to see so many men here, because whenever I see a women related thing, D&I see more of ladies there in that conference. Yeah, so it's very nice to see, because what is more important is men hearing the other side of it, so that they can support, right? That's what I believe, right, will make an impact to the society. So myself, Anuradha, I am the solutioning leader for IBM. I'm also the center head for IBM Hyderabad here. We have around 12,000 people here, and we offer services globally. I guess all of you know what IBM company. And I've been in the industry. I've worked in multiple multinational companies as well as global companies. So glad to be here. Thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here, and hope to interact with many of you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, panelists. With that, we'll get started. So Anuradha, what does diversity and inclusion mean to you? And why? How do you resonate with this topic, right? Is it even important to have a diverse workforce that is reflective of the diversity in the society? Maybe you could share some thoughts on that.
So firstly, I believe it's the social responsibility. While yes, it benefits the corporate world, but I believe that all of us have to be equally responsible, that we are providing inclusive environment to everybody, right? It is in our we have to be fair to the society. We have to be providing those opportunities. We have to be looking at how can we actually get over the barriers which have been created, and really provide that environment and support, right, as much possible to the society, right? That's what I believe more in terms of it. And if I look at it from a corporate world standpoint, is extremely important, right? I have interacted with global clients, global teams. Then we have different types of people Then we have different races, different castes. So I mean, it's very important for us to be dealing with all of these types of people in a culture which supports and it's more inclusive, right? So some of the advantages which I've seen is definitely it builds more innovation and creativity because we are hearing diverse thoughts. They have multiple experiences. That's one. And it actually creates more competitiveness for us. So if I look at IBM itself, we have R&D centers across the globe. Why is it not only in one place? Because it is required so that they bring in a lot more creativity and innovation, right? The second aspect is about the global client backgrounds, right? So when we work with diverse people, then you're bringing in more and more diverse thoughts, perspectives into your product. If you're building a product, you need to ensure you're looking at it from multiple customers and users perspective, right? That's one. And then the most important I feel is employee engagement. If a company is very inclusive and their practices and policies are very supportive, I've seen a lot of respect coming in from the employees. They're more motivated. They feel a sense of belonging. They feel more inclusive, and attrition and retention is higher, right? Attrition is lower and retention is higher. So I think definitely having a diverse workforce is very, very important. Every manager, every leader, every individual has to be looking at how do I really bring in more diverse perspectives into what I am doing so that it becomes more richer, right? That's what I believe in.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, Anuradha. And you've given such a 360 perspective, if I may say, right? And this is such a broad question. I think it makes perfect sense to get all the ideas on this one. So Anjali, why don't you share your perspective?
Thank you. I think a very powerful question, honestly, because when you look up the dictionary and the meanings of diversity or inclusion, there are multiple meanings that you get from there. And there are 18 different types of diversities that have been defined also. Research being done on all 18, by the way. So for me, diversity is about, embracing differences, about valuing the differences that we bring to the table. I also look at diversity as such as, if I may use the word, a numbers game. But then inclusion for me is actually, the impact that we create by ensuring that we're including people. So I believe that diversity is where you actually think about how many diverse backgrounds, how many diverse employees, etc. Whereas inclusion is about how are you actually doing it? How included are you making people feel? So those are some perspectives. Your second part of the question I found even more interesting because I have some statistics, and so I believe in paper and pen still belong to the dinosaur age. Interestingly, from the society's perspective, when you look at the numbers, there are 41% women earning PhDs today across the globe. Okay. There are about 63% women who are actually earning their MPhils. And can anybody guess what the number of graduates across the world would be? Just graduates, completing undergraduate and completing their graduation. Sorry? Yes, it's almost there. You're almost there, 69%. So they're actually completing their education, So given those numbers, how does it reflect in our workplaces? Like I've done a study in academic institutions, and the number of professors, the number of women professors, and let me just stick to gender for the minute, it's less than 15%. I mean, imagine 41% are passing out and earning their PhDs, but number of women professors is just about 15%. Interestingly, there was a study done over 30 years by the automobile industry, where they looked at the severity of the accidents that women faced, okay, vis-a-vis the men. So the men and women are using similar type of cars, but the severity of the accidents and for cars that were involved in crashes was 47% more for women. And then they realized, so about 20 years back was when Ford and GE started hiring women in the design department, because they said that the seat and the way the seat is designed, or the seat belt, Okay, that was not absolutely appropriate for the body of a woman. Similarly, in the pharmaceutical space, there was research that was being done on considering the typical easy parameters, the weight of a woman versus the weight of a man. Whereas what mattered was the hormonal changes that, a woman goes through starting maybe in year 13 and 14, that the man not necessarily, has similar types of hormonal changes. They do, but not similar. So especially when we talk about women as being the primary caregivers of the society, shouldn't we paying attention to such aspects? So diversity and inclusion, like you rightly said, it's about the clients. It's about who are we servicing? Are we including all of those facets when we're talking diversity and inclusion and promoting D&I? Number one. Number two, I would also want to leave this thought with all of you that remember that women still make 80% of the purchase decisions. That's what data says. So whether it is clothes, whether it is cars, whether it is medicines, it's the woman who goes out and buys it. And we're not catering to, the person who's actually calling the shots over here. So that's my 2 bits.
Thank you, Anjali. Very well said. So the way I look at CBRE looks at this topic is we have a 3-letter acronym: diversity, equality, and inclusion, DEI. Diversity, as both the speakers mentioned, is about looking at our global workforce from different lenses, from racial diversity to diversity based on gender, sexual preferences, to looking at age. Somebody like me at probably a Gen X versus somebody who is entering, a Gen Z entering into the workforce. That is diversity. Employees with special ability, neurodiversity. So a lot of different diversity aspects. Question is, how can we leverage the different perspectives to make us all stronger? Equality is about following all of our, making sure that is an equitable practice, equitable practices across the organization, and there is no room for unconscious bias. So that is about equality for us, aligned with the RISE values that you see across all of our, the walls across our buildings over here. That is what we believe in. Inclusion for me is about embracing the power of our teammates, globally. Creating a culture an environment where we are comfortable to bring the whole self to work. Creating a culture where we are able to work with each other, amplifying each other's strengths. In a nutshell, I've always used this word extended family for all of us. Diversity, equality, DEI is essentially for me is an extended family, which stays together, rises together, and delivers some amazing customer experiences together. Thank you.
Thank you, Apratim. I think that kind of sets the conversation on a very nice level, right? Where we have so many perspectives on diversity and inclusion. Now, I know that many times when we talk about D&I, sometimes it gets restricted to gender conversations. It is much larger than that. But having said that, we all have to accept that gender is a very important aspect of D&I, because the statistics just show, right, Anjali, the way you just spoke about it. So let me pick on you, Anuradha. What do you think are some of the challenges faced by women today at their workplace for their career development, as an example?
I think the most. Can you hear me? I think. Can you hear me? Yeah. I think the most important factor I see is the bias and stereotyping, right? Somebody has to take the minutes. Women in the room, if there's one girl, can you take it? Can you set up the call? I mean, that comes naturally, right? I mean, I think that's the most important. I really abstain from it many times. All my career, I have abstained from it, right? So I think that's the most important, and we should not, if there are women here, I think that's something, that's a natural tendency, right? The motherly tendency which we have, we try to facilitate, right? So that's taken as our maybe nature, and that's maybe used right. So that's one thing which I see, right? The second aspect is, said and done, the lady of the house has more work, right, than a man. and the work and home priorities always clashes for her, right? And there is always the balance which they need to create between home and work. That puts a pressure on them, and that's not taken into consideration many times, right? While I'm not saying treat them separately or differently. I don't want to be treated separately. I don't want to be treated differently. But then we have to accept that fact, right? This lady is actually going through all that and coming to the workplace, right? That's very important. Acceptance the manager has to be taking so that they deal with the individual in that way, right? That's a major challenge. I came across one just last week in our location where we all are mandating 3 times a week, right? To be coming to the office, and that lady actually had at home, it's not something she wanted forever, but then for some time, right? She wanted because she had small kids. So I think that's something we have to help. It's not about equality, it's about equity is what I believe, right? Equity is basically help differentially, right? Provide the equality with a consideration of the other person's condition or situation, right? That's very similar thing. I will not generalize this. It can be for somebody with disability, right? We'll need to treat that person that way, right? That's one thing which I've seen is impacting the women. And then the third one is, I would say the networking, right? Women is always, at least I have been like that. I want to finish my work and then go home. I have other work at home.
You're not alone, Anuradha.
Yeah. So I'm always focused, right? I want to finish this. So women are very work oriented and task oriented, right? I mean, they finish 100%. If they commit, they finish, right? That's the beauty of being a woman, right? So basically, I'm not saying men are not, but then most of the women are like that, right? So basically they are very focused and because they have other tasks at home, right? So they don't network, and many of these opportunities come through network, through your through the opportunities which get arised through that, right? That's one negativeness which at least I have also seen for myself, come across. I've changed after that a bit, so that I mean I network more, right? So and the last one I would say is about flexible work place, right? And many companies are trying to do the policies they have, the environment they have. There's a critical period where the women needs help, right? So unfortunately, they're building their career at the same time they're building their home family as well, right?
So true.
Having kids, and they're also building their career. So the policies have to be a little flexible so that they're given flexible hours or whatever, right? I mean, whatever works between the employer and the employee. It need not be a 9 to 5. You have to be in the office 9 to 5. So that flexibility is something which is hindering, I think, the women, right? These are 4 things I've seen is impacting a lot. And yeah, I mean, I think each one of us have to look at how we help, right, women better so that they're able to build their career and they're also able to take it more easily and do not struggle, right, in the process. That's very important.
I think you have laid it out so well, Anuradha. I could relate to many of the things that you mentioned. And the moment you put everything in the equation, right, the house-related work, caregiving, then you are just putting those 2-3 steps away, from the next, career growth opportunity or whatever, unintended consequence, perhaps.
Yes.
But then that's how it is. And so, right, that at the same time, you're building your career, you're building your family. So everything just comes at a wrong moment, maybe. So, but yeah, gender, like I said, is one aspect. But going back to the broader theme, right? When you talk about the society, the customers that we are all accountable for, I think, how do you really think about D&I? For example, Apratim, if I may ask you, CBRE is about commercial real estate spaces, right? So how do you really ensure that some of these nuances that would be some special needs for folks are really taken care of when you build those?
No, absolutely, Saraswathi, great question. If you look at CBRE, we are present in 100 plus countries and 500 plus offices globally. Now, again, you have to think about, that there are hundreds of customer personas that exist within this ecosystem. I was talking to somebody earlier today, and again, you have to understand your customer, you have to understand the diversity of your customer, Understand what your customer wants and provide that unique solution that your customer needs. That is what is the real challenge. Why, the stats that we heard, diverse companies who focuses on diversity are more successful than companies who do not focus on. So if you look at, and that is the reason we have extreme focus around DEI within our organization. If we look at all the way at the top of the house, the CEO of our Global Workplace Solutions to our Chief Financial Officer to the Chief People Officer are all well-revered diversity leaders. Now, fast forward into a different division called Digital and Technology, where I belong, where many of us in this room belongs. There are 100+ agile teams and some distributed agile global teams that exist. If you map back to a lot of the teams, you will see in many of the teams, you will have employees who are operating out of more than 2 countries, 2 or more countries. So question here is, how do we, leverage this collective power, the collective strength of us, the diversity across our organization to our advantage, gives us unique perspectives, makes us more innovative, helps us build those innovative solutions in the hands of our customers. Again, our diverse customers, that drives us the competitive advantage. So diversity is here across the ecosystem. You have to consider that as your challenge to build that unique offering for our customers. So that is where our focus around D&I is helping us drive the competitive differentiation in the marketplace.
Thank you, Apratim.
Thank you.
So, I mean, we talked about multiple aspects. Now, let me just begin with something basic, right? When you do hiring, for example, many times you have to look at a slated hiring, diverse slate. How do you really do that, Anjali? Since you have that HR leadership, I thought maybe you can share some perspective on that.
I'll try my best to, with these 2 stalwarts here, I'm sure they have something to add as well. So a lot of companies focus on, the numbers, right? So this is the number of diversity hires that I should have this quarter, this year, etc. I'll give you a couple of instances. I was with an organization called the Tata Business Support Services some time back, and we consciously chose to hire on an average 200 to 300 folks from tier 3 towns. Okay, and all of these were going to be working on customer support, customer service, all obviously related to IT. Now, it was a challenge, first of all, to just convince the management and the board to say that we're going to be doing this. But when we got the okay, we said, let's experiment with 2 centers. And as we went about doing this exercise, we had a few things which were black and white, and there was no compromise on that. One was, how do you evaluate these students who typically come from a tier 3 or a tier 4 town, and hence education, having been got in those towns. So it was very different for somebody like me in Hyderabad also to go all the way to a remote area in Kerala and do the hiring was also very, very different experience. But we decided that one thing we're going to do is very objective interviews where we can have a metrics around which we will ask same questions. We will have a report card for each of the candidate, and we will ensure that the metrics are compared at the end of every day that we were interviewing people. While we were doing that, we also decided that when we're going to these you can hear me, right? I'm naturally very loud. Thank you. So the second thing we did was, on each of the interview panels, we had somebody who understood not just that part of the country, that part of the geography, but also so the panel had at least 2 people who were very diverse besides the business leaders for whose processes we were interviewing. So it was mandatory that if it was a panel of 4 or 5, at least 2 would be people who were from diverse backgrounds, so they understood the candidate better. There is a statistic again about Intel. When they did this, their diversity hiring went up from 31% to 45% when they mandated that there has to be in their case, a woman and a person of color on the diversity panel. All right. And at the end of the day, it was about measuring metrics at every stage of the hiring. So how many people, when we have, say, a position, and this was across levels, how many shortlisted CVs are there that belong to people from a diverse background and that belong to people who will naturally apply for a position such as that. So it was where you actually looked at metrics at each stage. How many resumes did you shortlist? How many shortlisted resumes were then selected by the hiring team? And how many were selected? So at every stage we had a metric. So it was 4 things: objectivity in hiring. Thank you so much. Yeah, that helps. So objectivity in hiring, standard questionnaires, and then you have a report card for every candidate. Diverse panel, okay, that's mandatory. The third was where we had metrics that were calculated at every single stage. And I forgot the fourth one, where we trained each of these panel members and make them understand as to why we're doing this, the purpose of why we're doing this. So when we did this, that worked for us. And then, the focus on the metrics, as far as just getting that diversity number there, was not so much. It was more on the process, and we achieved the target that we had to. And sorry, if I may just add, the result of this was more committed employees, like you rightly said, retention, employee engagement went up big time. And these centers that we set up in these remote parts of the country were always consistently the highest performers in terms of their CSAT scores and other scores that we track.
Very, very nice to hear that. Am I audible?
Yeah.
Okay. So very nice to hear that, Anjali. And many times as business leaders, we take excuse saying, hey, we're not getting enough profiles, we're not seeing enough conversion, but hey, this position has to be closed quickly. But I think you all came together and then did this, right? And taking the trouble of going to case and then doing the hiring. I think that's a good example.
Can the participants mute?
Can we mute all? Okay, Hari has taken. Yeah, that's taken care of.
Yeah,
Thank you, Hari. So yeah, I think this is about everyone taking ownership and then it's about really going to tier 2, tier 3 towns and then giving that opportunity to folks there.
Yeah.
I think such a wonderful example.
Thank you.
So Anuradha, I had one other question for you, right? Many times as women, when we grow in our career, there is this concept about, or rather this heartfelt thought about how do you pay it forward, right? So how do you think you have helped or mentored other young women in the organization or, in the society at large?
Okay. So I mentor both men and women, actually. So yeah, but women, I'm more closer and maybe more empathetic, and I would like to help them more, definitely. So what I've seen is that through my journey also, I've some experiences which I could share. The one thing which stands out is one has to come out of their comfort zone, right? That's very, very important. I mean, this is valid for men and women, right? One has to come out of your comfort zone, right? I mean, it's easy to be in your own role and continue doing. There's that saying, right? If you keep doing what you're doing, you will keep getting what you're getting, right? If you want to go to the next level, you have to do something different. You have to really think, make a plan, have a goal, and look at, this is what I want to do end of the year, and really go for it, right? So adapt, be flexible for the change, and really go out of it, right? So when I'm mentoring women, so the key things which I typically talk about is the first thing which actually helped me in my building my career was having a good support system, right? I spoke about having that balance between work and home. I could achieve it because I created a support system at my home, right? Support system doesn't mean, yeah, my parents are there, my in-laws are there, but at the same time having your own independent support system so that you don't rely on somebody. No, you have your own a kind of space for yourself, right? I try to outsource whatever I can, right? So, at the home front, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's cooking, whether it is dusting, taking care of the house, right? So basically, that actually brings you at par with the man, at least, right? So that goes out of your that's what I would definitely say every woman has to be doing that. This because we think we want to do everything, we want to be perfect. I want to be the perfect mother, I want to be the perfect wife, the perfect colleague, the perfect maybe developer,
The perfect
architect,
cook
the
also.
cook, right? I've never tried that, right? But I wanted to be the best at my work, right? That's one thing which I have picked up. My career is something which I own and I have to really do the best in it. I've been always thinking of that, right? So yeah, you have to prioritize between work and home many times, but then yes, you have to ensure you're doing your best, right? Whatever you pick up, you do your best, even at home, right? So and work. That's one thing very, very important, right? Support system. The second one I would say is about your confidence. I was not confident at all when I started my career. I started, I studied in a very remote college in Kerala. And then I moved to Delhi. From there, imagine one corner of the world, of India to other, and I didn't have that confidence. I didn't even know how to speak English, no, frankly, right? So I think today's generation has a lot more opportunities. I would say a lot more choices we didn't have at the time, right? So, but then every woman has that movement, right? Disruptive moment, which they have to make a choice. That comes for every woman, right? They have to make the choice between family and work, right? Maybe a role which you get or a travel which you need to make. Even I had in a government company before, and I had to make the choice whether should I join a private. At that age, 30 years back, it was always government is the choice because yeah, I mean, you live, you settled, right? You have your job for life. So, but then I made the change. Okay. And the second change I made when my daughter was 3 years old, was I was given an opportunity to travel for an important critical assignment to US for 6 months. Yeah, I mean, it was a very tough choice, right? 3-year-old daughter, and but then I went. Okay, so it's all about opportunities you get, choices you get in life, what you pick up, that makes you, that builds your career, or that builds your work or home, right? So and you should be confident about it. I'm happy that I made that choice. I never repented, right? So it's all about being confident about your choices, building your confidence in each role, making those changes, but really putting your best, right? Again, to make that change work for you, right? So the third element, which I would say is about looking at building your networks. That also helped me, right? Women are not very good at it, as I said before. But then when I'm mentoring people, I try to connect them with some others so that they can get more mentors, more coaches, no more, maybe your own manager. You should have that conversation so that you talk about your career. Women hesitate to talk about themselves many times, right? So you have to be opening up. You have to ask for that job which is out there, and maybe have a mentor or a coach so that you can build on your own brand, right? Your own, everybody has a brand, right? For themselves. You have your own strengths, you have your own weaknesses. Build on your strengths. Look at what is it which I do well in my job, and really go after that, and look at which is the other job which you want to pick up, right? So that confidence you need to have, and that network you need to build so that you can go for it, right? And the last one, which actually worked for me, is my focus on my fitness. And I tell this to all the women I mentor, right? After 40 is, I used to do some basic walking, calm chill out type. But then after that, after 40 is when I really focus on my fitness. I started running marathons. I mean, and everybody can pick up their own things. I started learning Carnatic music. Then I started again reading again. My old passion I started. So I started focusing on me time, right? Because that's very important, and that builds your own brand again, right? So fitness really actually helped me become more passionate in whatever I do, and more energetic. And that really changed the way I am as a leader, right, in my own career also, I feel that made a lot of difference to my personality, right? And these are the 4 things I say to each I mentor, whether it's man or woman. But then, yeah, women definitely more mentoring, more networking, and more I would say support system is what I would say, which women has to do better. But the rest are valid for everybody, I would say.
I couldn't agree more, Anuradha. And on the fitness part, I'm definitely relating to you. I'm germinating after my 40s, I guess. But
Yeah.
you know, I think the points that you made, what I loved about them is it is true for everyone, right?
Yes.
I mean, Anura, I'm sure, you know, from those remote places, wherever you have hired Anjali, you are creating many Anuradhas of the world who are leaders, right? So I think it's about creating those carefree, really talent and, you know, growing them, right? That as confident leaders. So absolutely, I think that potential is there in everyone. Now, I think I'll come back to the earlier point that you made, right? You said diversity is many times a number game, and then inclusion is how we do it. I really want to understand, you know, how do we do it, right? So some concrete examples of how do you think inclusion can be brought in whatever we do today?
I'll give that a shot. Interestingly, so I work right now for a renewable energy company based out of Hyderabad. One of our investors is a company which is based out of Norway, and they had organized, it's summertime there now, beautiful weather. And so they had organized a cycle race for their employees. All right. Now, what they also did is they said that we will provide the cycles. The company will provide the bicycles to all its employees. So they went around, you know, procuring the bicycles or renting them out and said bicycles will be available here. This is the race, da, 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 all the hoo-ha was done around it. Now, there were 2 employees who were physically challenged. Okay. And through all this, you know, the excitement that was built up, etc., they forgot about these 2 employees. All right. So they after that, like I report to the board. I'm the head of HR here, so I report to the board from an HR point of view. So when we were talking about this, and they like it when I give them lectures on D&I, you know, so I make the most of those opportunities. So when we discussed this point, it really struck them, you know, and it was difficult for them to procure those typical bicycles at the last minute. But these could be very small things when you're planning an event of that magnitude. But look at what kind of a taste it would have left on those 2 employees and their colleagues or their friends. You know, so that's something that I was so happy when I entered the office. The first thing I noticed was the wheelchair that was kept next to the main door. So, you know, I think all of these could be possibly small things for people like us who are able-bodied, but then it makes such a world of a difference for, you know, those folks who are challenged in some other ways. So I've had a lot of such experiences because I've been fortunate to be a part of organizations where we did encourage, you know, hiring from tier 3, tier 4 towns, etc., etc. I'll just give one more incident or example that happened. Recently, I was in Chennai training an IT company, a very high-tech IT organization, and 90 exactly 90 senior leaders in that organization. Believe me when I say this, every single person in the training hall, I had 3 batches, 30 each. Every single individual was from an IIT. Every single individual. Okay. And if they had 2 degrees, both the degrees were from IIT. And in each of these batches, there were 29 men and 1 woman. And we were talking about unconscious bias. You know, I found it like I just said, you know what, guys, get up and look around the room. That's it. You know, just looking around the room will. So when I challenged them about their hiring practices and others and their concept of inclusion, you know, it was very difficult for them to, so they tried to defend it. In fact, their India center head actually hated me for the first 3 hours of the session. But then it was like, it sunk in when we said, yeah, you know what, we're really not being inclusive. I mean, they've been around for about 27 years in the country. But look at the senior leadership level, the kind of ratio they had and the kind of background they hired from. And during the break, I happened to go and ask one of the senior managers, or rather he shared with me that my daughter is now going to be appearing for her engineering entrance. And I just threw a question at him and I said, what if she doesn't get into IIT? And he went scratching his head. He said, I really need to think about this, you know. So I think it's important that we pay attention. It's you know, I think we should do both. Anything that we do, I'm a firm believer in looking at the metrics. So if we say that we should hire 25%, you know, diverse candidates, we should also say, how much are we on the scale of inclusion? Because there is a statistic again, research says that if you have 30% of people, you know, from diverse backgrounds, only then will their voice be heard. So in the Norway company, there were just 2 who were physically challenged and they got neglected, right?
Yeah,
So that's my 2 bits.
I think so wonderfully laid out, Anjali. And I mean, I think that brings up one other aspect, right? Diversity in education too. If all of us go to IITs, maybe we'll never think differently. So many of you in the crowd who haven't made it to IITs, I think it's time to cheer for yourself now. That was on a lighter note. But yeah, I think it's about being thoughtful and then saying that no one moves ahead unless everyone moves ahead, right? So as simple as that. So Apratim, any additional perspectives on this one?
Yeah, absolutely. Great perspectives, Anjali. Again, you have to look at it in two different ways. One aspect is looking at the metrics and the outcomes. I have a person over here whom I have given a lot of pain in my past life around data not being right. But again, metrics, outcomes are important. Big organizations, all of us have got matrices around measuring the, our diversity, from a talent acquisition standpoint, looking at how those diversity employees are, prospering within our organization from a career development standpoint. And then moving on, how many of them are innovating for how many of the women innovators are there across the organization. That is important because that metrics helps us to be grounded around our outcomes. But at the same time, we have to think about an important aspect, which Anjali was referring to, the culture, the secret sauce around this whole thing. So that is where a few things that I have been doing or done in the past life, sharing some of the best practices. One, we did a session with all of our managers in our, not this center, but the other NCR center, was around interviewing skills. Interviewing skills, making sure folks do not just hire only for skills, but hire for the overall the package that they get, and where you are looking at diversity and unconscious bias at the time of hiring. So that is one great thing that we have been doing over, here. In my past life, once for a couple of years, I had 2 mentors. For I think 16 through 18, I had 2 mentors. One was an exec in my old organization, and the second one was a mentor, was a diversity employee who just joined from the campus. It was more around reverse mentoring, and personally, I will say that I learned a lot from this. The campus hire at that time, she's not a campus hire anymore, but she taught me around value of around agility. Looking at an use case, if I ask any of my leaders to say, hey, how much will this use case cost and how long will it take you to build it? Guarantee anybody will say 9 months, $1 million, walk away, do nothing for next 3 months, guaranteed. But here is this person who I looked at it and said that, hey, I can get this done in 3 hours. And I just forgotten about her completely. Just let her take that challenge, work on it. After 3 hours, she comes to the meeting room where I was located. No fear of failure. Barges in when a different meeting was going on, and said that, hey, I've already completed this. I said, how do you do it? You don't even have software licenses. He says, I figured out I cannot get the software licenses in 3 hours, but I've written the entire code on this notepad, and I've got this notepad. I'm sure it is going to run. I guarantee you that. So a very different perspective. Question for all of us is, how do we garner that agility, nimbleness, which is very important for us as we are going through a big digital disruption for a lot of folks in prop tech, prop tech that we are in. That is a sector that is going to get disrupted over the next decade. So agility, nimbleness is very important. And that is something that lesson that I learned from that individual post a floor work, and she became a mentor for me for the next couple of years. The other one I wanted to call out, what we're doing within CBRE D&T is something called She Hires, hashtag She Hires. If you select, Google it, you will see for all of our, key hiring positions, a lot of talent acquisition teammates are over here. They are smiling at what I'm talking about. A lot of focus around diversity. She Hires, hiring the right diversity talent, but couple it with meritocracy. So look at all the different dimensions. That is also there. Third thing is an important one. What we are doing is around employee networks. Also diversity cause. We have got two very prominent networks around Asia Pacific network and women cohort. What I said before a few minutes back was in many of our agile teams, we have got teammates from 2 or more countries. So Asia Pacific network, important for all of us to understand the cultural differences between the different geographies. There is one more diversity aspect I wanted to call out, which we are very well focused on. And I think Anjali mentioned at the start that diversity goes beyond gender. It is not only the women who code, it is about other aspects. For instance, we are looking at some military veterans, ex-military veterans into our workforce, for which, CBRE D&T, we are partnering with IIM Indore to hire. They have got some curated programs to encourage, military, ex-military personnel to join, who wants to join the corporate. We are partnering with them. And of course, women who code, Saraswathi and Moses and the team. I think it's again another avenue for us. We will continue to focus on hiring from and make a big difference. So I've always said diversity makes us stronger. Diversity always wins. And these are some of the attributes that we are doing personally to have some reverse mentoring, and for the organization, a lot of different things from an employee network to, focus around, hiring, beyond gender, looking at, creating the right culture within the organization, this extended family. So those are some of the aspects that we are working on.
Thank you, Apratim. And I think we are, but I'll just take a 5 minutes team and close within that. Maybe we'll just one line or, one word message each one of you to close this discussion. And then I just have some questions. Anuradha, you have to summarize diversity inclusion. What is the takeaway for this group? Put that one message.
I would say respect and celebrate diverse perspectives.
Very well said.
For me, it would be, definitely keep watering the seed of diversity, celebrate equity, and cultivate inclusion.
Very, very simple. Diversity always wins.
Okay, now some fun round so that we'll get to know a little bit more about you. And no thinking, what comes to your mind first, you will have to answer that. I'll first start with you, Anjali. Given a choice, invisibility or super strength?
Invisibility.
Okay, Mr. India, Mrs. India, maybe. How do you like to start your day?
Oh, with my dog licking my face at 5 a.m. in the morning.
That is reality, or that is how
that
you
is
like
the
to
reality.
start?
That's the
Okay.
reality. I wait for her to come and.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah.
What is the best compliment someone has given you?
This is slightly difficult, not fun actually. What should I say? I think that I'm very good at influencing people for the right things.
Very nice.
Thank you.
Okay, over to you, Anuradha. Books or movies?
Movies.
Very nice. When was the last time you stayed up beyond 2 a.m.?
Mostly movies
Oh, nice.
or work. I mean, there's a client, always I'm a last minute person. So there's a presentation tomorrow to the client. Yeah, night out and finish the presentation.
That's not her mentoring for you, okay? Who inspires you?
Actually, a lot of people I meet inspire me. It's not like one person typically, right? Because I was talking to my daughter yesterday. She really inspired me in terms of how they think, right? The
So-
clarity of thoughts, right? That's one inspiration. I mean, if I I mean, every leader, I mean, they have different thoughts. I mean, so I think the inspiration comes from multiple people we interact with, even from this, definitely a lot of
Totally.
things to take away from and get inspired, right?
Totally.
That's what
Thank you.
continuous inspiration.
Apratim, LinkedIn or Instagram?
Mm, somebody said Facebook. No, say LinkedIn, I will say.
Harvard Business Review or Filmfare?
Harvard Business Review, please.
Your favorite movie?
Well, it's Three Idiots, watched it 34 times. And reason, there's an important message in that movie, which I personally, I practice. Success ke piche mat bhago, excellence ke piche bhago. Success, chak maar ke tumhare piche aayenge.
Wow, I think we end this panel discussion on that note on excellence, right? That's what all of us will aspire for in everything that we do, including DNI. So thank you so much, panelists. I had a lovely time with all of you today. And like you said, everything is a continuous inspiration and continuous learning for all of us. Definitely benefited from it. And I hope all of you did too. Please do sign up to Women Who Code Hyderabad chapter for many such more exciting events. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Yeah, we could take a couple of questions. After that, we just have a networking tea. So one or 2 or 3 questions from the group.
Farida.
Saraswathi. I am Farida Gauss. There's one question that we know we talked about, actually connecting two questions, I could say. And Anjali's talk about metrics. You know, she believes a lot in metrics. So are we looking at only saying, okay, let's have this portfolio saying 25% of women and the remaining as men? And the other question related to that is, in short service commission that we see in all these armed forces, why is that we also see that is women, it's only temporary and not permanent? What's your input on this? Thank you.
No, she is getting the mic back.
Both are very interesting questions. Pardon me, the men folk here, but I believe in metrics because when you show numbers to men, they believe us more. So when we talk about softer aspects, it doesn't. So let's look at a sales team, for example. If they don't meet their targets, 1 quarter, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, then what happens? You get a C rating, you get a D rating, and then you're asked to leave the organization. What happens if you don't meet your diversity targets? Because that's like, yeah, you feel good about it, and it's in that realm. So, but then if you start pushing the numbers and focusing on the metrics, then even that can become actually serious, and we need that to happen. Hence my love for metrics and numbers. And if you ask people who worked with me, they'll say, Anjali, talking about metrics and data. So I like to sit back and do the analysis rather than actual numbers. The second question was even more interesting to me because my daughter just stepped out of the armed forces and she's just come home today. So thank you. So she's a doctor. She was a doctor in the army and she did her MBBS from AFMC Pune. And she got back home just today morning at 4:30. And we've talked so much about this, in the family and at home. Very interestingly, this time around, when they hired women, Air Force, Army, Navy, they insisted that the women sign up only if they're choosing permanent commission. Okay, and I've seen this happen just as my daughter was, signing up, not signing up / they also have this hierarchy of ranking, whereby if you're among the top rankers, depending on what course you've done in the army, then you have that flexibility of stepping out or continuing. But this time around, I would say that more than 90% of the women who had signed up actually didn't have a choice. They had to sign up for the permanent commission. Very interestingly, again, her seniors, about 2 to 3 years, her seniors are also now posted in CHN. So it's kind of opening up. They're realizing that, while they have to take more precautions when they send a woman, and they cannot send only a woman, in case they will have to send a small fauj for her protection. But this is happening and it is changing.
Very nice to know that. One more question.
Last question.
I see a
Anybody?
hand up.
Yeah. Okay, all right. Okay, let's go.
It's really been very great. Thank you. Actually, you guys are into it for all a young woman who was here. Talk about CBRE, it's a very flexible company. On all of the points you have mentioned, after 7 a.m., no woman will stay here. So it's a policy in here.
7 p.m.
I have two questions. So what are few couple of tips that you give to young women here who want to see themselves into the top leadership? That is one question. And the second question is, I know that in Accenture there is one policy where like 20% of women gets promoted every year, irrespective of whatever they deliver. So if you have a 10 years man and a 10 year woman is having the same promotion list, obviously women will be going forward. So do you feel that this is unconscious bias, and is that policy right, or what is your opinion?
Sir. Okay, that's good. And I think Saraswathi is sitting here. She's definitely a terrific leader and being an industry veteran. I think Saraswathi, you should take the first question.
What's your name? I didn't get it. Shravani. Whenever people ask two questions, I forget one. So you will have to tell me the first one again. Okay, tips.
Young
Okay,
women
okay. I think
to be in
it's
leadership.
not like I think Anuradha kind of called out so many things that resonated with me. One is, of course, this is true for everyone. You have to be hungry to sign up for more. That's how you grow, right? And then second, you always have to deliver excellence. You have to really work hard for that. There's no two ways about that. These are two which are common for everyone. But then for women, I think what you really have to keep in mind is how do you manage the ecosystem, right? Many times, even at home, you need to do stakeholder management. Tell them that, hey, I can't make dinners on so-and-so days. These are my scrum meetings, which are very important. So do that stakeholder management, set that expectation upfront. Then you feel mentally very free, right? Then there is no guilt. And please, when someone says, I will help you at home, take that help. We all have that habit of saying, no, he won't do it correctly. No, I better do this myself. No, you teach, right? But take that help when it's coming from home. So these are two minor tips additional for women, I would say.
And if Accenture is doing it, it's great. Okay.
No,
Everybody, and my friend here, Apratim, also will agree. I think this is a leadership challenge. Okay. And like Anjali said, it's really a challenge that stares at us all the time, as in we have the will, right? We want to make this change. But like Saraswathi, Anuradha said, a lot of times the talent itself holds themselves back. So while there are so many opportunities, so many channels, and so many pathways being created, if there's nobody coming forward, then it's very difficult to make that big change. But if the companies are coming up with these, great opportunities or very selective pathways, women should go for it. Take the opportunity.
Sorry, I just have one thing there, right? It is slightly nuanced because you said no matter what they do, women get promoted. No company should do that is what I would do. Okay. Now, are you questioning her promotion by any chance? On a lighter note, Right.
Yeah, don't be hard on yourselves, or nobody should be hard on themselves.
Right.
Okay, every person is capable, and it is a phase, right? Somebody has a high and then a low. So it is not that all women will be high performers all the time, or all men will be high performers all the time. Look at Virat Kohli or anybody, right? Or any great athlete. They all have ups and downs. But if you're able to maintain that and take these opportunities, right? If the company is thought through, there is a creation of a roadmap, everybody should dip into it, make the opportunity, and then give back to the company. I think you're responsible towards the larger cause than to satisfy few egos and the gossip and all of that. That will always be there. No matter if you're a rocket scientist, and you still got your promotion, you'll still have 10 people chanting behind you saying, hey, she got it because she's a woman.
Yep.
Okay. So I think you should just kick it out of the way, ignore such comments, believe yourself that you got it because you deserve it. Right. And why you? We earned it. Right? It's both for men and women, right? We got it because we earned it. Period. And just leave it over there. Don't waste your time, energy, sleep. Go and celebrate. That's it. That's it.
And
Okay.
that was just said on a lighter note. My respect to your mother-in-law for playing such a big role there in the organization, and all kudos to her. Yeah.
All right.
All
So a big warm and big round of applause, whistles, clap, shout to, our hosts, Apratim and CBRE, and Usha, who made it happen for us. And, Dr. Anjali, who joined us, shared their perspectives. You and director for the event, Saraswathi, who herself is an inspiration, right? And to all of you who took out time, joined us, we have snacks, we have time to connect. Please don't rush, don't run away, don't go home. Take out, like she said, take time to network. This event has happened because of a network, right? So please build that network, make new friends, and thank you for coming and making this great event. I want to thank. Oh, great. And we want to thank all the people, the 60 believers who joined on Zoom and made this event virtually successful as well. So big thanks to them. Two people who've been working tirelessly behind the scenes and brought all of us together. Big thanks to Rupanjali and Hari, right? So round of applause for them. Yes. All right, with that, thank you so much. Enjoy your lovely snacks, make some new friends, and let's catch up on Meetup. Correct, Saraswati?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, team. Had a lovely time.
That's okay.